Hey guys, Emma here. Do you guys want to know a fact that some of you guys might not have known? You see, when on estrogen, trans women can sometimes start experiencing phantom periods. Now, obviously, a trans woman like myself does not have a uterus, so therefore I am not bleeding, but I'm cramping to all shit and it's horrible. You want to know how sick I felt? If you can't tell by the outfit, I was planning on going to Disney today. And if some of you guys know, I love Disney. But I felt so sick that I didn't go today.
Often, womanhood is defined by men via the tools of oppression. In other words, by femininity, by stereotypes, and by experiences of misogyny. While trans-identified males have succeeded in convincing much of the world that identifying with degradation is equal to womanhood, they have yet to win everyone over in their assertions that they too experience periods.
Day 12 of being a girl, and we're gonna go buy tampons. Let's go.
So I actually already stitched this video twice, but both got taken down for God knows what reason. So I'm going to come back on a less aggressive tip and try and talk sense. So I want to start off by saying I love that you can, wake up and choose when to be a woman. That's amazing. So you're on, what was it, day 40? And you went out of your way to buy sanitary products, right? Tampons. Let me tell you something. Do you know what getting a first period means for some women in this world? I say women, younger girls. That means that they are now fertile. And do you know what that means? That they are now allowed to get bread, basically. So I'm almost 100% sure those children in other countries that are being forced into marriages with grown men and forced to have babies while still a baby would love to be able to pick and choose when to wake up a woman. And while we're on the topic of less fortunate women, sanitary products, for some, are not accessible. So out of no fault of their own and no choice of their own, women are forced to free bleed, okay? And that doesn't even need to be in third world countries. There will be women in this country, in America and Australia, and other countries that are well established, that cannot afford sanitary products, because as much as they are a necessity for women, they still cost money. If this wasn't bad enough itself, you then proceed to pull the tampon out of the box, out of the wrapper, and actively laugh at us going, where does this go? Where do you guys put this? If you had something other than a piece in between your legs, you might have a clue. As minor as some of you might think it is, being that little girl in the classroom, because I was someone that actually hit puberty quite early. So I was still in primary school when I got my first period. And thank God that I was in this country when I got my first period. Do you know what I'm saying? I was embarrassed. And it's something that for a long time, you're embarrassed about. You sneak your pad up your sleeve and sneak to the toilet. When you're walking home from school, you're getting beeped at by grown-ass men in white vans and their cars. Growing up a girl is tough. Do you understand? There are things growing in this life when you grow up a girl that men will never ever be able to comprehend. And you lot's brains are wired differently. That's another thing I think you lot forget, clearly, because your video screams misogyny while you're trying to be a woman. I don't know how we've gotten to a point in society where we are now fighting for the right for men to become women. Okay? I said it. Me personally, do what makes you happy. But most places, it's legal to go about your business now. So why are you still coming for women like us? I know his video specifically wasn't coming for women, but I just find the video itself distasteful and disrespectful. And me, that's coming for me. I see hundreds of videos like this one, and I don't see any of you actively fighting for the rights of women around the world. Just because in, well-established countries, women have got rights, doesn't mean the rest of the women around the world do.
This is just one of several female-specific experiences that trans-identified males are incapable of experiencing, and therefore are highly jealous of, which also includes breastfeeding and childbirth. These claims are particularly offensive as even today menstruation huts exist. 1 in 5 girls miss school because of their periods in a first world country. 23 million girls drop out of school in India because of their periods. 1 in 10 women are affected by endometriosis, and many period products still hold a risk of introducing carcinogens, reproductive toxins, endocrine disruptors, and allergens to the body through the vagina, which is especially absorptive. Women's reproduction is under-researched and often under-discussed, which adds to the creation of stigma despite a shared common experience between most women and girls. A lack of education from both family and schools means that many girls have had their first periods before they are educated about what menstruation is, leading their initial reaction to often be fear, shame, and embarrassment. This also leads to a lack of knowledge about period products. While many are aware of the two most common, being menstrual pads and tampons, few are aware of alternatives or the impact that these products have had on their overall health, which leads to a lack of control over which products they use. Inaccurate cultural beliefs are also common, such as that periods signal sexual maturity, placing girls in danger of early sexual activity and marriage. Even when schools offer education on menstruation, due to often being a sex-segregated discussion, boys are excluded from knowledge that could help to normalize menstruation as a regular bodily function, leading to continued negative attitudes and secrecy around menstruation. This includes the association of menstruation with female irrationality, to the point that the idea of PMSing is something that is used to dismiss women's opinions, feelings, and concerns. This ignorance often continues through adulthood, as women rarely have an opportunity to rectify that lack of knowledge. Menstruation is a woman's monthly bleeding, often called your period. When you menstruate, your body discards the monthly buildup of the lining of your uterus. Menstrual blood and tissue flow through your uterus through the small opening in your cervix and pass out of your body through your vagina. During the monthly menstrual cycle, the uterus lining builds up to prepare for pregnancy. If you do not get pregnant, estrogen and progesterone hormone levels begin falling. Very low levels of estrogen and progesterone tell your body to begin menstruation. The depiction of the vagina and uterus in media as being there only for sexual reproduction and baby making adds to the stigma around periods. When a girl is going through puberty, there comes with it a sudden awareness of how one is perceived by others as a sexual object, a feeling that leads to knowledge of sexual violence and shifts self-image to become more reliant on the ways that others view you. Often, depictions of the female reproductive system illustrate the vagina as being a hollow space, internalizing the concept of women being a vessel for the male reproductive organ. However, the vagina is not hollow. The walls touch one another and only part when there is an intrusion. The depiction of the uterus punishing the woman for not being pregnant is also a misconception. The purpose of creating such a thick uterine lining during the menstrual period is to prevent the implantation of embryos rather than encourage them. Our uterus is basically flushing out anything it deems unworthy during the period itself rather than punishing us for not being pregnant, as the female body is more concerned with the protection and continuation of itself rather than being used as a procreative vessel. The fact that we've come to accept the idea that our reproductive organs are punishing us for not being continuously pregnant is proof of how deeply patriarchal brainwashing has convinced women that we are nothing but broodmares for their children. This often stems from religious belief. For example, the curse of Eve, which is generally used in reference to the pain of childbirth and assumed from the text of Genesis 3:16a, which punishes Eve for her transgressions through painful childbirth. In Leviticus, it states that a woman who has her menstruation is impure and unclean. As stated in an interview with Rachel Neve Midbar, when you menstruate as an Orthodox Jewish woman, you become untouchable to your husband. Every month, the couple separates completely. You don't sit on the same cushion, you don't sleep in the same bed, you can't even pass them a salt shaker. You count the days of your period, then you check yourself over the next week. There's a little procedure with a white cloth to ensure there's absolutely no blood. When you're totally clean, you go in the evening to the ritual bath, the mikvah. Family purity laws are biblical. They come of the idea that when you touch something that has died, you have to then become ritually clean. Because the egg has died every month, you've come in contact with something that has died. So it's not that a woman is dirty, or at least that's what we tell ourselves as Orthodox women. In Islam, women are supposed to maintain proper hygiene and should not perform prayer when menstruating. And when the menstruating period is over, women have to perform ritual purification. Despite attempts to spin these edicts to seem positive and less punishing, religion has consistently treated menstruation as a dirty and taboo act, which undoubtedly has an effect on how the women and girls raised in these environments feel about their regular bodily functions. Women are not Lego figures that can be taken apart and dissected at will. The uterus plays a large role in overall health, and removal of any part of the reproductive system leads to a higher risk of cognitive impairment or dementia, which increases the younger that surgeries occurred. It is for these reasons that it is especially offensive that trans women argue that they also experience menstruation. Despite claims otherwise, trans women cannot have a period. A period, or menstruation, occurs when the uterus sheds its lining. Side effects like cravings, cramps, diarrhea, or nausea may occur as a result of this action. Just because trans women might experience stomach aches or diarrhea or other issues doesn't mean that they have a period any more than hair loss and loss of appetite inherently means you have cancer.
Just a PSA to all my fellow trans girls out there on estrogen. We do, in fact, get periods. We do. It took me literally complaining about cramps to another trans woman for me to find out, but doctors don't tell you shit. Just talk to other trans girls.
The approach of using symptoms to determine the cause of a condition or disease, rather than determining what caused the symptoms, is known as diagnosis by symptom. In this approach, the focus is on identifying the underlying condition based on the presence of specific symptoms, rather than identifying the root cause of those symptoms. However, it can also lead to misdiagnosis or failure to identify underlying causes that may be contributing to the symptoms, as it is in this case. Quite simply, trans women cannot get periods because of several reasons. 1. They do not possess a uterus. 2. Periods are caused by hormonal drop, not by high blood levels of estradiol. Rather the opposite. Stable high levels of estradiol prevents periods from happening. 3. Natural cycles do not work in trans women whose natural hormonal functions are stunted with blockers and replaced with regular intake of artificial hormones. 4. It's regularly believe that the menstrual cycle happening creates particular hormone stages, not that those stages occurring isolated create a menstrual cycle. And 5. Other hormones like progesterone also take part in the menstrual cycle, which trans women do not receive. Of course, the idea that trans women need to experience periods to be women goes against the concept of gender being little more than a state of mind. If women do not need to have XX chromosomes or a vagina or breast, why do trans women feel a need to role play at menstruation to feel affirmed? The behavior itself suggests an understanding that menstruation is a female-only experience, hence why many trans-identified males buy period products to role play womanhood.
This is honestly exactly how I feel about the trans movement. Something that I also think is crazy, which the original poster of this video mentioned, is that a lot of times these trans women are the ones who are trying to really insert themselves in biological women's spaces. But when it comes to trans men, they're not trying to assert themselves in men's spaces. And why is that? The reason for that is that trans women are biological men, which means they have the audacity of men. They also were socialized as men. So there's a different level of confidence, of just moving in the world with authority that women just don't have as much. And I really feel like trans women are really taking advantage of the fact that the majority of women are much more docile. They're not trying to ruffle any feathers. I should say, we're not really trying to ruffle any feathers, hurt people's feelings, and that is being used against us. It's also so incredibly offensive that many of these trans women think that being a woman means putting on makeup, wearing dresses, speaking in high-pitched voices, having long hair, being scared of bugs is what it means to be a woman. All they're doing is truly making a caricature of what womanhood is. It is so off-putting, so offensive, and it's like we are truly regressing in real time. All in the name of progressivism, acceptance. I'm so tired of having to tiptoe around people's feelings. What about women? What about the fact that if we speak out and we say, yo, this is really not cool, we're the ones who are vilified. We're the ones who are told, oh my gosh, you're transphobic. It seems like this society is still very much against women. Because from my vantage point, for a man to say, oh, I'm a trans woman now, and trans women are women, and then try to mansplain womanhood to someone who was born into this, seems like the most misogynistic thing ever. As women, we really need to band together and put this stuff to bed. Now, I'm not mad at any trans woman who can be honest about the fact that they were born a biological man and is not trying to infringe on women's spaces. But for the ones who are ruining it for all the trans women who aren't doing all this nonsense, things need to change.
Menstruation remains a taboo topic due to a lack of education, inaccurate cultural beliefs, and patriarchal brainwashing, which perpetuates the stigmatization of periods. Women's reproduction is often under-researched and under-discussed, which contributes to the creation of stigma despite being a shared experience. The depiction of the vagina and uterus in media as being there only for sexual reproduction and baby-making adds to the stigma around periods. It's important to normalize menstruation as a regular bodily function and provide education to girls and boys on this topic to dispel myths, negative attitudes, and secrecy. The patriarchal mindset must be dismantled to respect women and their reproductive organs and to stop viewing women as broodmares for just bearing children. Education and knowledge are essential to change cultural attitudes and beliefs and to empower women to take control of their health and bodies, including the understanding that males, no matter how they identify, are incapable of having one. This, dear viewers, is where we part. I did not really mention in this video about just how menstruation being treated in a positive light have often been ridiculed. For example, using diva cups to use menstruation as fertilizer for plants, or period blood art, or having rituals and paganism that center around menstruation. All those things are ridiculed so much, and yet we're supposed to somehow let it slide that trans women are play pretending at this thing that still affects up to 50% of women on Earth at this time, at any given time. That still leads to so much discrimination and self-loathing. It's honestly so offensive in the same vein as a trans woman arguing that they can become a woman or give birth. There are some experiences that you just never will experience, and that goes for anybody and any demographic. I will never know what it is like to be Asian. I will never know what it's like to be in a wheelchair, or at least not yet, I guess. There's a lot of things that we just don't have the experience to talk over and to pretend at. For the same reason that being trans ableist is so offensive, it is still offensive to pretend that you can have menstruation when you are male. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, let me know down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.